Hey everybody, welcome back to Overkill Reviews.
I'm Sarah.
This is Brad, and this is our first ever tag team review.
So, a few weeks back, we asked you, what were the key albums that came out this year that we neglected to review? You answered, we tallied up the votes, and here we are.
And you left a lot of votes, over 500. Are we happy with your results? You'll have to watch and find out.
Before we get to your top 5 albums that we missed, we're going to give you a top 5 list of our own. The top 5 reasons why we might not have reviewed these the week they came out. Number 1, there was something bigger, more high profile that came out that week that we just couldn't not do.
Number 2, we didn't get the album in advance. And we filmed these things in advance, so we kind of need the music to match up.
We hated it, you know? Nobody here liked it. So, you know, as your mother says, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we didn't. Not that we have a problem giving negative reviews, but if we can highlight something else that somebody's more enthusiastic about, why not?
Number 4, we loved something else that day. Perfect example, Temple of Void. There was higher profile stuff that was coming out, but we decided to go for something underground because I was really stoked on it.
Number 5, The World's Not Fair. Sorry.
All right, everybody, let's get into it. Here are the top 5 albums of 2017 that we've yet to review, as chosen by you. For number 5, it's Unleash the Archers and their album Apex, which came out on June 2nd, 2017 via Napalm Records, and I am so stoked. Oh my god, I get to review a power metal album I actually like! Unleash the Archers. They're a Canadian band, they're from BC, and they're now on their 3rd studio album. The band formed in 2007. Their strengths are that they're a driving power metal band with great lyrics, they're conceptual, and before they had a lot of kind of awkward death metal growls and the production wasn't great. On Apex, they've basically trimmed all of the fat, consolidated all of their best elements, and made a fucking powerhouse of a record. I think their greatest asset is Brittany Slays. She's the vocalist and her voice is unbelievably powerful. They've really learned how to make these big, driving, epic choruses, and it really works to their advantage. Honestly, this album is killer. I don't have anything bad to say about this record.
Well, sorry, but I do. They're just not quite as anthemic as I want them to be. Like if I'm listening to power metal music about like swords and having a pet dragon or whatever, I want to feel like I'm riding a fucking dragon who's breathing fire with a sword at all times.
Incidentally, Unleash the Archers has a 7-inch featuring a woman riding a dragon with a sword.
That being said, these parts are executed well. The band clearly knows what they're doing. Plus, the second song on the album vaguely reminds me of my favorite song by 3 Inches of Blood, Quest for the Manticore. And I don't know what a manticore is.
You don't know what a manticore is? No, like the manticore. It's the lion with like scorpion in the tail. You guys are losers.
Yeah, we're losers, Dungeons and Dragons here. Like, fuck off. That's your favorite core music is Manticore.
Now for the skull rating. I'm giving this my highest score that I've given anything on Banger. 4.5 skulls out of 5.
And I'm gonna give it a strong 3.5. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not fucking Anthony Fantano. But I am gonna upgrade it from a 3.5 to a 4 because the band's Canadian. And they have a song that sounds like a manticore, and I learned what a manticore is. Psych, you got pranked. We actually have a tie for number 5. So we're gonna talk about Primitive Man's Caustic, out October 6th via Relapse Records. Primitive Man come from the fertile Denver scene that's produced bands such as Of Feather and Bone, Spectral Voice, Blood Incantation, Cling to the Trees of Forest Fire, and Vermin Womb, the last 2 bands which actually include members of Primitive Man. They play the occasionally noisy, blackened doom music that's incapable of sounding inviting. It's ugly, to be honest. I couldn't tell you a timestamp in a song that's my favorite because to its strength and its detriment, it kind of all flows together and becomes one massive hour and 17-minute long album. This album is a difficult listen, both in terms of how consistently heavy it is and the fact that it's an hour and 17 minutes. They're really pushing the limits of both the compact disc format and people's attention span. But if you want to, and you can make it through the full album, you'll be rewarded because it's really a cohesive piece of fucking hatred.
I have a similar opinion of this album, but almost for different reasons. I've known Primitive Man for a long time, and I agree with Brad on the assessment of the album kind of pushing the limits of what you can absorb musically. It is trying your patience and it's trying your attention spans. So in that sense, it actually becomes a benefit to the band, even if for someone like me who doesn't really get it, it is tiresome. So with this kind of incohesive review, I'm giving it 4 skulls.
Is incohesive even a word? And don't I get to go first because it's my review? This is bullshit. Why do you get to go first when I led the... No, I'm just kidding. I'm giving it 4 as well. It's a cool album.
It's pretty good.
It's cool. It's long though. That brings us to number 4. And I'm leading this review again, so I'm gonna give my skull rating first when we get to the end of it. Right, Sarah?
What a baby.
Number 4 is Renaissance in Extremis by Akercocke, out August 25th on Peaceville Records. And yes, the band name is pronounced Akercocke, which means your dick hurts in Satanic. All right, but seriously, Akercocke were formed in 1997 in London, England. Admittedly, my relationship with this band is fairly new, but I did dig into some of their older stuff, and I found it a lot more threatening than this album. The blackened part actually felt evil, whereas this time around it almost feels safe. There are plenty of worthwhile parts throughout the album. It's just, you know, you're gonna have to wade through these vocals to get there. These are grating, and I don't like listening to them. They just no. That's my answer. My answer is no.
I have to agree with the assessment on the vocals. They're extremely grating. I didn't get what they were going for, nor did I appreciate the style. It was difficult to get one full listen through the record.
This one the influences that they pull together, they just don't meld as I want them to. And for that, I'm giving this album 3 out of 5 skulls.
Yeah, for myself, I'm gonna give it 3.5. I think the music's great, but lyrically or vocally, that's the issue for me primarily here. Album number 3 is Elder's Reflections of a Floating World. This record came out on June 2nd, 2017 via Stickman Records. Elder really exploded in popularity earlier this year on the basis of this album, and to be honest, I did listen to it once or twice. I was a little too busy listening to albums that 5 people purchased on Bandcamp. Sorry, Elder, because this record is actually quite fantastic. This band is really reminding me of an amalgamation of Pallbearer, of Baroness, and of Pelican. It's got a lot of expansive soundscapes. It's not particularly aggressive, and instead it's really focusing on creating a mood that's a bit more pretty than it is aggressive. All told, while I think this record is excellent, I'm not really the audience who appreciates this style. But that said, I still think that this record deserves a very high skull rating. Brad?
Honestly, I'm not the audience either. I'm not gonna say that they're not a competent band. Very clearly they spent a lot of time crafting this album and it shows, but keep it away from my ears, please. I'm sorry.
So for my skull rating, I gotta say, this album deserves a high one. It's 4 out of 5 skulls. I would recommend it to my friends who like this kind of style because it's extremely competent and very well done.
I just don't really have any friends who listen to this kind of music, and I don't either. So it's my review. I didn't like it. I'm giving it 2.5 skulls.
Next up is album number 2 that was voted in by you. It's Obliviscaris.
They're Australian, so they would pronounce it either nee or nay.
We don't want to fuck it up, but it's nay.
I'm gonna say nay Obliviscaris. I think it's like fucking Latin or some shit. Plus that just sounds classier. And they sound like they'd be a classy band. They got like a violin and shit.
They do. They are a classy band. They put out their album Earn on Season of Mist on October 27th. So this record was a little bit of the odd man out on this list because we weren't really sure if I should do it or if Brad should. And kind of amazingly, both of us really enjoyed it.
Don't spoil the surprise. I might not enjoy it, we'll see.
I'm not really a big fan of these extreme blackened progressive acts, but I actually really enjoyed this record. They formed in 2003, and this is their 3rd studio album since their inception. And as soon as you turn it on, you're gonna be struck by how the band is doing genre Olympics. They're jumping all over the place. They've got a lot of diverse instrumentation, but not only that, they've got a lot of earworms, and it didn't take long for me to be hooked. It has these violin integrations and these blast beats and these clean vocals and then these growling vocals, and they're not afraid to try something that might seem like it wouldn't work. What'd you think, Brad?
When I first started listening to this album, something was just bothering me. There were a lot of parts that I liked, but pretty much every song just was a little bit grating to me. Once I got past that, I was able to appreciate the album a lot. I really liked the interplay between the guitar and violin. There's on one song here where there's a violin like bed lane, and there's just arpeggios like sweeping all over top of it, and it's beautiful and very metal at the same time. If Yellowcard has taught me one thing, it's that you should put violins where violins don't traditionally go, and it can turn out pretty cool.
All told, some of the tracks on this album would benefit from being slightly cut back, but it's not really an issue because it's kind of the standard for an extreme blackened progressive album. In addition to that, the production on it's pretty much perfect. It is very clean, but it fits the fact that you've got all these diverse instruments going at it. Overall, I'm giving this record 4 skulls out of 5.
I'm also giving this record 4 skulls out of 5. I guess it's a strong album through and through. All right, last up, we have the most requested, by a landslide, I might add, Power Trip's Nightmare Logic, out all the way back in February via Southern Lord Records.
Go on and look at you. Today's your lucky day. The execution is here, and it's ready to make you pay. You played for so long, and now you have your chance. The execution is here, and he's sharpening his axe. Swing of the axe.
My relationship with this band goes back many years. The songs Suffer No Fool and Divine Apprehension are 2 of my favorite songs from this band, but on Nightmare Logic, they've managed to at least hit that level, but given that it's a whole album of songs at that level, they blew it out of the water.
Now that I've listened to it a couple more times, I'm definitely going to be devoting more time to Power Trip. Musically speaking, Power Trip is not the new wave of thrash, which I kind of refer to as flip hat pizza thrash. It's because the production's overdone. For Power Trip, it isn't. This band is really harkening back to the classic days of thrash metal. I'm thinking bands like Exodus, like Slayer, and like Creator. And not only that, they're merging it with classic hardcore punk like Cro-Mags. So this album has pretty dry, kind of muffled production that works really well for the songs. It's got lots of gang choruses, there's chanted verses, and all told, it's fucking fun. I want there to be a movement based on what Power Trip sounds like. I'm tired as hell about that sound that Municipal Waste has brought into the mainstream. This is great thrash metal. It's how thrash metal used to sound, and it's how it should sound now.
One thing that I want to bring up is the fact that the band just feels more confident this time around. There's less reverb on Riley's vocals. I mean, there still is some, which lends to that classic thrash metal production. Like, they've somehow turned simplicity into something of a metal art form and a punk art form. There is plenty of that in here as well.
Finally, one of the important things about this record is that it's just over 32 minutes long. Do you remember the first time that you heard Rain in Blood as a kid? I remember the first time. The second that it was over, I just started it over because it's 35 minutes of fucking thrashing mayhem, and that's exactly what Nightmare Logic is.
I'll be honest, I don't remember the first time I listened to Rain in Blood, but I probably pressed play at the end of it again too. If I didn't, I'm gonna beat my younger self to death.
Or you could just go home and do it right now. Not beat yourself, listen to Slayer. Obviously, we're both stoked as hell on this record. It's fucking fantastic. We're really glad that you guys picked this as your #1, and we wish that we had reviewed it earlier. I think it's fantastic. 4.5 skulls?
Yep.
4.5 skulls.
Whoa, he said that's a jinx.
Well, guys, we made it. Thank you so much for participating. Brad, we're done?
We did it. That doesn't mean we're done listening to metal and giving you reviews, but for today, we're done.